Hi, this is Mrs. Menking, and today I'm going to show you how to make pie crust. We're not going to worry about measuring the ingredients and stuff. You can find a pie crust recipe, and they're pretty much all standard anywhere on the internet. So I want you to know I already have my flour and my salt, and I mixed them already using a whisk. And so now the next step in the pie crust is adding your fat. Now there are oil-based pie crusts. There are shortening-based pie crusts. There are lard-based pie crusts. They all taste pretty good, and some of them are better for some other purposes because the oil-based pie crust tends to be a little bit more pliable, whereas the lard-based one tastes great, very flaky, but is a little bit stiffer. So if you're going to make lots of small things, you probably want to go for the oil-based, or in this case, the shortening-based, and I just used plain old Cristo, and I've got that there. Now the first step to making your pie is to make sure that your shortening or your fat is thoroughly blended with your flour. And so to do that, you can use a number of tools. I tend to use my pie crust blender or pastry blender. Mine's a little different in shape. Usually the ones you see at Walmart are, they got the bright red handle and they've got the little circular half moon with lots of little metal slicers there. And that's really what we're going to do. We're going to slice the fat into the dough. Now, if you don't happen to have one of these handy dandy little guys, you can use two forks put together. And so you're just going to put one fork on top of your fingers like that, and you're just going to sort of mash it through, and then you can get fat mixed in with the flour. And if you don't have two forks mixed together, maybe you're camping or something and you realized, oh no, I need pie crust and I brought all these ingredients, but I didn't bring any of those fancy things and I don't have a fork to spare because I counted out one fork per mouth. And ask me how I know you might want to do that. Never mind, we all know. Anyhow, so you're going to take your fingers, you're just going to take your little fingers and you're just going to rub the dough together just like that, and you're just going to sort of have a little bit of fun with it. And you're just going to rub it together. And you're just going to rub it with the fingers. You don't want to put it in the palm of your hand. You're not going to make it up. It's not a snowball. And you're just going to sort of smush it up together. Now, since I'm going to use my fingers to finish this, let me go ahead and take all the pie crust off of here, or the potential pie crust off of here. And it's going to take a few minutes to make this. It's not, they do say easy as pie, but the basis of the pie is the pie crust. So if you don't figure out how to make a good pie crust, your pie is not going to, do well. So you want to make sure that you blend it in here well. And again, you're using just your fingers, and you're just going to take a little bit like that. Now, it looks like it's mixed, but you can see I've got large, shaggy chunks, and what I really want to do is I want to make sure that every single piece of flour is coated with a fat, and it should look like it's almost like chunky beach sand is really what we're looking for here. I know the most recipes say put it into small pea-like crumbs, and you can do that, but your dough is going to be a little bit harder to work with. And so it's feeling more and more like chunky beach sand, and as you'll notice, I can put it together almost as though it were a snowball. So that tells me I'm pretty much done with my dough here. I'm just going to double check. When you're mixing the fat with the flour, it's really hard to overwork the dough at this stage. So this would be the time to make sure that your dough is mixed beautifully, and you really just want to make sure that it almost clumps together like that, and there are no dry pieces. So I've got all of this together. It's all clumping. I'm not seeing anything that doesn't want to join in here. As you can see, it's all coming together. Anything I touch wants to go into the big ball. So I have now incorporated. And you'll notice I am just using this little pushy, twisty motion here. You don't want to get your palm. You don't want to roll the dough like that, because that creates a different type of texture, and we don't want that. So next thing we need to know is your recipe is going to tell you to add water. Hopefully, if it's a good recipe, it will tell you to add ice water. And I don't know if you can see, but yes, I have ice cubes in here, and it's going to chill my water. The reason for this is because I've just blended fat with flour. And I want to make sure that the fat stays on the outside of the flour and is not blended inside. And the reason for that is because when I put my pie crust in the oven, I want my fat to explode and make a little pop. And when it does that, it's going to separate the layers of the pie, and that's how you get those flaky, flaky layers. Now, if my fat is blended in with the flour instead of coating outside the flour, then it's not going to pop because the flour is going to even out that temperature, and you're just going to have this really, really flat pie crust without those flaky layers from explosions. So, gentlemen and ladies, for those of you who like to blow things up, let's explode our pie crust. Now, I've got my ice water here, and my recipe says that I want 4 to 5 tablespoons of cold water. So I'm going to start with a little bit less than that because remember, I had a pie crust that was almost going to be able to make a snowball with it, I guess a pie crust ball with it. And I don't want to add too much water. And again, I'm going to use a squishy motion. I'm not going to use my palm and do a rocking motion. When you do the rocking motion, that's called kneading, and it actually changes the structure of your flour. It sort of like tenderizes the flour, and it develops something called gluten. Gluten is a nice, tough little thing, holds things together. But we don't want a tough pastry crust. We want a soft, delicate one. And so once you start adding the water, you want to handle the pie crust as little as possible. And again, we're going to use that squishing motion. And as you can see, my pie crust is holding together really, really well. As soon as I squish it, it makes a nice little ball. So that tells me I don't need to add all of the water. Now, it may surprise you that some days I add, instead of just the 3 tablespoons that I added, some days I might have to add 6 or 7 tablespoons. That is because flour is supposed to be a dry ingredient, but the moisture content of the flour varies depending on how long it's been in the shelf, if it's been in the freezer, if it's been raining outside, if it's been snowing outside, and there's no way to tell how much moisture is in your flour until you start working with it. So my flour today was fairly moist. We've been having some snow. I've been running the humidifier in the house, so my flour didn't need a lot of water, and that's it. I'm done. I can clean the bowl, literally clean the bowl with the dough. It's going to get all nice and soft there. And we're going to stop right here. Yes, I could roll it out if I wanted to right this minute, but the dough would be very sticky and hard to work with. And so our next trick for working with pie dough is to squash it down into a little disc. And then we're simply going to put it in the freezer for 10 minutes or the refrigerator for up to 2 or 3 hours. And if you leave it in the fridge for longer than that or the freezer longer than that, you need to let it set out on the counter. But I'm just going to take this out. I'm going to wrap, oops, didn't all stick together, bad pie dough. I'm going to take my little disc out. I'm going to wrap it up in saran wrap or whatever non-consumable I've got. I usually put mine on a plate with a little bit of a silicone cover because I own those and they're good for the environment. And that's it. We have made our pie crust. And now I'm going to show you in a different video what to do with pie dough. So have a good time and thank you for watching. Bye.